Good morning, Hope Hub. Today is April 28th, 2018, and I'm just here to acknowledge all of you and to say thank you to all of you for being a part of this space, and just acknowledging those of you who have supported me as I put together this Hope Hub. And it's not been a platform that's been here for a long time. It's actually relatively new. I started the Hope Hub last year in June 2017, and since then we've grown and we're now a membership of about 2,000 people on the Hope Hub. And I was sitting here looking through my notes because I was supposed to interview someone earlier today on autism awareness, and we were trying to make sure that the autism awareness show happened in the month of April, just because it's Autism Awareness Month. And of course we tried, and for whatever reason it wasn't working. We had technical difficulties. But as I sat here, I thought to myself, you know what? I am an autism mom, and I started this space in order to give hope to other moms like myself and to other parents who are struggling with this diagnosis on a daily basis. And even though I don't have to do that in the month of April, because of the significance of this month, I do not want this month to go by and not for me not to say anything. The reason that I started the Hope Hub in large part is because of my son being diagnosed with autism. He was diagnosed about 5 years ago, and it was a hard it was hard to receive that information in terms of me and in terms of my husband and my family in general. And I went through a period of what I would call depression. It wasn't clinically diagnosed, but I was very, very depressed as a parent. And, you know, I spent a lot of time in a state of hopelessness. You know, I had a lot of people coming into my house and giving me negative energy and negative information and speaking things into my child's future about what would happen and the dire circumstances that may follow as a result of this diagnosis. And I know sometimes people give you that information in order for them to they think they're helping and they're going to make it easier and maybe for you not to have denial. But sometimes, especially for people like myself, I found myself very, very depressed to the point where I was basically hardly functioning on a day-to-day basis. And so the one thing that got me out of that depression was my introduction to hope. Reintroduction to hope. I was a person who in my life growing up, I was raised by a very strong Catholic mom, and she made sure that we went to church, and she made sure that we were raised in private Catholic schools. So we had mass and we went through all the rituals of religion, and I knew who God was, but I did not know who God was on a personal basis. So during this time was a time when I found myself reintroduced to God, and I found myself wanting to learn more about God and why this was happening to me, and why I was chosen to have a child who had this diagnosis. And of course, I went through that whole why me, and that grieving period, and that denial period. It was almost like those stages of grief. But in all of that, what I learned is that hope is powerful. It is powerful. Words have a lot of power, and you have to be careful about the type of energy that you surround yourself with. You have to be careful about the people that you have in your life space, and the things that are being spoken over your life and the life of your children, because not only do words have power, they have life. Right? As the Bible says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. And so I took that information and I digested it, and I started to surround myself with things that give me hope on a day-to-day basis. So irrespective of what people were saying to me, I chose not to digest information that was negative. If anything was spoken over my child that was of a negative nature, I rebuked it and I spoke positive and made it a positive statement. So that's how I realized the power of having hope, and not agreeing to people's predictions that my hopes were false. And that's why I started the Hope Hub. And I thought to myself when I started it that I didn't want to limit the people who could benefit from the Hope Hub to only parents who had a child who had an autism spectrum disorder or diagnosis. I wanted the Hope Hub to be inclusive of all people who have gone through trials and tribulations in life, adversity in life, and need that voice or that person that can speak a word of hope and encouragement to them across a screen here on Facebook Live or through any other means somewhere in the community, and then they are able to get that life back in their limbs, in their spirits, and they're able to make another step and do something meaningful in life. So essentially, autism is what was my pain, and autism is now also my purpose. And hope has now become part of who I am. It doesn't mean that necessarily on a daily basis I'm the most hopeful person. If anything, my husband kept telling me, for someone to be selected as hope, it's really weird that it would be you, because I'm one of those people who would always see the glass half full. And I would half empty, I guess. And I would never be the person who is offering encouragement to others. I would always be the what if something bad happens type of person. But sometimes God uses the things that are your weakness, and He uses them to benefit people. You could have an area of weakness in your life, and that's what God chooses to use to strengthen other people. So sometimes I don't feel like I'm the messenger for this hope message, but yet God keeps calling me and telling me to be that messenger. And so that's why I'm here on the Hope Hub, giving hope on a daily basis, giving doses of hope on a daily basis. And that's who I am. So in terms of autism awareness, just a few things for people who do not know about autism. You love your child more than anything in the world when you have your child. And in the early days of having that child, I remember for Jonathan, when he was born as my son, when people were asking me, how did it feel to have a son? Especially when they came to visit me in the hospital, because my first child was a daughter. They would ask me, how did it feel? And I would say, I don't know what it is, but I felt like my heart was connected to this child. It was like a string connecting me to his heart. That's how I felt. And I named him Jonathan, which means gift from God. And so in the earlier days, like with any mom, I had my hopes, my dreams, my aspirations for this child. And I still do. I still have plans and hopes and dreams. I still tell people he's going to be class speaker of his graduating class. And I never give up on hope. But then, of course, a diagnosis like autism will feel like a lot of doors are closing on those hopes and dreams. And people make predictions about your child's future. people give you information of how hard it's going to be for them to make it in life, to have a job, to get married, to graduate. But the love of your child never leaves you. And it's a tough diagnosis to have, because you have this beautiful baby, but all these things are being spoken over your child. And so those pronouncements, which people will say autism is a lifelong condition, they're pronouncements that live with you on a daily basis. And in terms of people who are not aware of autism, some of the things that people struggle with autism, with children with autism, are developmental delays in terms of speech and language, delays in terms of social skills, and just they have a hard time navigating the world, which is a social world. And so for that reason, because of communication issues, social issues, they also start to exhibit behavioral issues. And some of the classic signs that I saw as a mom was my son was not responding to his name. When he was 2.5 years old, when he was 3 years old, we would call his name over and over again and he wouldn't respond. And then additionally, he was not able to respond to emotions like smiles and people kind of talking to him and engaging with him. He was also having a hard time with that. He was not developing meaningful language. So for example, pointing was an issue. Like, with children, when they want something, you don't have to teach them to point. They naturally take those cues from the environment, and they're able to point and say, hey, that I want that milk. I want there's a bird. Oh, that says BJ's or whatever. But my child was not exhibiting those things that are just really common in terms of children. And so, we had cause for concern, but no one had really given us those classic signs of autism. And, at some point, I remember Googling, why is my child not responding to my name? And then all of a sudden, Google told me, your child is autistic. And every single page that opened up on Google gave me the classic signs of autism, and I started to see that those were mirrored in my environment, in my child. And it was gut-wrenching. It took me out. It basically overrode any coping strategies that I had and resources within myself that I had cultivated over so many years. And it took a while for me to recover from that. And eventually, I learned to live with it. And eventually, I developed more of a spiritual aspect of my life, to where I was able to lean more on God for my spirituality and for my emotional support. And, every day I'm still living with it, and every day is a different day. Okay, so it's not like I have arrived. I can't say that my son has recovered, but what it is that I do every day here on the Hope Hub is just to offer hope for those who need it. And it can be a parent who has an autistic child or a special needs child. It can be a parent who is just going on with their regular life, but then maybe they have issues in terms of finances, issues in terms of job loss, whatever it is, where as human beings we lose hope in our lives. That's what the Hope Hub is. And I chose to turn what was my pain with my child into purpose, but a purpose that was to benefit others. So every day on the Hope Hub, I tell people, I am not the only clarion voice of hope for everyone. I'm just one voice. And so I keep asking people to join this community, to invite friends, to add people, and not just for vanity in terms of numbers and Facebook pages and getting the numbers up so that you have this following. It's really not about following for me. What it is I want my voice. I want Mary Kim's voice, Grace Jaroge's voice, Chandra Pitt's voice, who was on here earlier, to be a voice that someone hears and resonates with in their time of need, in their time of hopelessness, regardless of what circumstances that person is going through. So I believe that each and every person has some hope to give based on the circumstances and the issues and the challenges that they've gone through. And sometimes you don't even have to have gone through it personally. It may be just that you're an encourager by heart. I welcome you to join the Hope Hub. I welcome you to add family, friends, and people who you believe are encouragers, but also people who need that encouragement. So that's all I wanted to say, is give you some information for autism awareness, give you some background in terms of why I am Hope on this space, and that has to do with autism. Really, that was my pain, and still is my pain up until this day, until I feel, every single day I'm working with my child to make sure that they're making progress as far as autism is considered, but just in terms of their growth, their personal growth and development as well. And I ask you to join and continue to support the Hope Hub community. Invite people, add people, tell people about this space, and we just want to make hope trend. The Beacon of Hope show, I try to highlight people that I believe are beacons of hope in a world where there's so many storms, right? There's so many storms out there that people are facing. And so I look out in my community and I see people who have have found the strength within themselves to not only help themselves, but to help others, and people who I believe have a message that they need shared. And so I'm just the conduit. I'm just a vehicle to help connect people to hope. And behind me today, it's interesting. I've had this picture for so many years. It's right there. See that? That's a ship in a stormy sea. And I've had this picture for so many years, and I didn't realize up until today that what it was depicting is exactly what this Hope Hub is about, is that all of us are mariners. We're all kind of driving a ship, or what are people that we're driving some kind of ship in the sea. It's our lives, and we're going somewhere, and we have a path. But storms come our way, and the waves come our way, and then sometimes your boat is gnashed against the rocks and the vicissitudes of life. However, there are people who stand out like a lighthouse. And I think Mary Kim is one of them, who was supposed to be my guest today on autism. People like Jason Rodriguez, people like Chandra Pitts, people like Lily Richards, people who have been my guests on the Beacon of Hope show. I see them as those people who are beckoning to the lost mariner at sea and saying, come here, because there is hope. There is hope. I've been to the other side and I've seen that there is hope. And I think we can work together. And I know where the resources are. And I know what you need to go to in terms of your spirituality, what can give you hope in your life. And that's who I am. It's essentially, that's why I'm Hope on this site. And I just want you all to have a blessed day. One of the song that I played at the beginning was a song called Dansaki. And it's by Lara George. And one of my beautiful Facebook friends had tagged me on it. And she saluted me. She saluted me in a dance where she's singing and dancing to this song. And I was sitting here crying tears. But let's go out as we listen to this beautiful song by Lori. Let me make sure I make sure who it is. Lara George. You've done in my life, I'm acknowledging you for who you are. Dansakiri, Baba, for who you are, what you've done in my life. I'm acknowledging you for who you are. Acknowledge God for who He is in your life. That's what I was sitting here doing. Just saying thank you for the Hope Hub. Thank you for my life. Thank you for giving me purpose from my pain. Thank you for people I can serve. Thank you for being a way maker. Thank you for being my Prince of Peace. Baba, I'm acknowledging you for who you are. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. God bless you, and thank you for being part of the Hope Hub. God bless you.